He really nails him!
Welcome to the official LOL podcast. It's your boy, Frankie Nunez. We're here to talk a little bit about football. We've got some major updates for you in our unofficial standings and what we've seen so far. We are also going to go straight to the personal home of the owner of the Neighborhood Roadies, Nick Muse, and he's calling a special, almost emergency press conference. He's got some news for everybody. We're not sure what that is, but we can't wait to find out. We're also going to have a guest on later. Biltmore Drivers star receiver and local retard James McDermott. We're psyched to hear from him. But let's talk some football. We haven't talked football in a while. Let's talk about what we've seen so far. First, we'll start with the Mothmen. We've gotten very little of full team from the Mothmen, but what we have seen is a lot of Justin O'Shea at quarterback. Now, we know that's not going to be the case. Renzo's the quarterback. He's the starter. But because Renzo has not been there much, the performance of the team has been relatively up and down, and that's going to be a theme you're going to see for all teams. But what I have liked about the Mothmen is the diversity of Holmes' play calling, which is something we've seen for a couple years now. They've got a lot of trickery, and it's going to be up to Renzo to see if he can put that all together and keep guys like Del Monte and Justin O'Shea involved. I think the key for this team, though, is Josh Paini. I know he's an idiot. I know he's very, very stupid, but he's a playmaker and he can stretch the field. What we've seen from the drivers is a lot of Ian. There's a lot of Colin. We've seen no Matt King. We've seen very little Ken Silver, and what we had seen from Ken Silver was just awful, just absolutely horrendous. He is very bad, and if he's going to be the quarterback for this team, they are going to struggle mightily. Can't have it. Don't do it. Colin, I'm talking to you. Don't do it. It looked awful. We've seen a little bit of Liam Devlin. He had a great touchdown about 2 weeks ago. Really athletic play there. And we've seen Matt Warner get in the end zone himself. We've seen none of Matt King, as he's still on his drug-related hiatus in Venezuela or some stupid shit like that. So this team needs to come together at some point. They've got a month left to do it. Let's hope they can. What we've seen out of the Smokes, Team Dan, is inconsistency. We've seen John Macca and JJ get loose here and there, Jesus get loose here and there, but the quarterback play has been up and down, and more so than anything, the defense has struggled to stop people, and that's been a problem, which is surprising with how good a defender John Macca is. He's done what he can do, but that defense hasn't stopped a lot of people. What we've seen out of the Roadies is almost an incomplete grade because we haven't seen them with Wes and Ray Sullivan, respectively. But they have had no issue moving the ball. So far, they've had somewhere north of 50 snaps as a team, or 50 drives, I should say, 50 possessions as a team, and they've only failed to score 3 times, which is pretty unbelievable. They've been an unstoppable cannon, but the defense has not been perfect. So there's a lot of inconsistency across the league, which I think is going to make up for an interesting last month of the season. We'll see if these teams can start to piece it together and start getting a little more cohesive behavior as teams. We'll see how that looks. All right, we're going to cut away, as we just found out we've got our cameras at Nick Muse's house. We're going to cut away to his press conference and see what he's got on his mind. We'll be right back.
After careful review of the events that transpired at Sunday's scrimmage, the Neighborhood Roadies have decided to suspend star quarterback Frank Samisa. Actions on the field were not in accordance with team conduct policy. We found that the comments were classless, and that's saying a lot coming from a team that represents Neighborhood Road.
Nick, Coach. Can you describe what actually happened, what was said?
There seemed to be a disagreement with the amount of vowels in the word Mississippi.
Coach.
Yes. How long is the suspension?
Suspension is indefinite. For the moment, I can say that Frank will not be playing in Sunday's scrimmage. We've been contemplating potential punishments, one of them being he can go home and say 1,000 Mississippis and think about what he's done. I don't know.
Coach. Can you give us a little insight into what happened after the scrimmage when you guys got back to the locker room?
we will not be disclosing events that occurred in the locker room.
Coach, do you expect, with your team getting out ahead of this situation, showing some class, do you expect Team Dan to reciprocate and suspend the proper parties?
The only thing I can worry about is bringing the Jim Tully to Neighborhood Road. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the LOL Podcast. It's your boy, Frankie Nunez. I'm joined here live by Biltmore Driver star receiver James McDermott. James, it's good to have you on the show. How are you feeling?
Not too bad. I'm happy to be here, Frank. Good to see you.
James, I'm going to get straight into it. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Colin Tully and why he had the faith to not only take you last year, but this year as well, this year being in the first round.
Well, besides the fact, we're related by blood, we're cousins. I've been best friends with him since, the get-go. We have a relationship that can't be broken, you know what I mean?
Is it sexual?
Same with Ian, his brother.
Is it sexual?
No, not sexual at all. Well, not yet, at least.
Tell me a little bit about what Colin brings to the field as a player.
Well, Colin is probably one of the more athletic people I've met in my life. The man runs triathlons. Probably not as fast as me, but regardless, he runs them. He's a tough guy. He can run for miles. Honestly, his arm's pretty good too. I trust him in any position, to be honest with you.
So when I say names like Ian Tully, Ken Silver, Matt King, Liam Devlin, and Matt Warner, your other 5 teammates, what can you tell me about those guys and what they bring to the table?
We've got speed, agility, power, finesse. Ken Silver, the name alone is a quarterback name right there. That's a quarterback name.
What can you tell me about the other rosters in this league this year, what you've seen from them, and what team maybe you think poses the biggest threat?
This year, it seems to me the other 3 teams are extremely stacked. Last year, some teams were lacking a certain position, but I think every team is pretty much loaded up. To be honest, I've always had this attitude. I'm not scared of anything. But this year, I'm actually a bit intimidated by, I would say, the roadies.
The roadies?
No. I take that back. The Mothmen.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the roadies at all because their coach, Nick Muse, had a special message for you for this interview saying that he was coming for you and you'd know what that means. Now, I assume that's highly sexual.
I'm going to lay him out and then take him out to dinner. Nick Muse is a good-looking man, but, can't keep up with me.
Tell me a little bit about the extracurricular that you've been involved in, not only this year, but last year at the draft party.
The draft party, I had about 2 to 3 beers. Went to bed relatively early. Went to the hotel gym in the morning. Then ran out on the field, got a couple sprints in while you guys were all sleeping.
What can you tell me about that piece of hardware on your hand?
Oh, this
that
thing?
Little bad boy.
That's a state championship football. I was MVP that year.
You were a punter, correct?
No, a punt. No. I was a slot receiver, middle linebacker. Funnily enough, I'm good at tackling because I'm kind of I'm into men, so I like to.
That's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Around,
At your age, you shouldn't be hanging out with women.
That's a good point.
What's the
women they take away from football, and that's too much for me.
At your age, what's the worst STD you can get?
The clap.
It's actually pregnancy. You know what? You know who you can't get pregnant? Dudes.
It's true. That's true. They have a butt too. I don't know why they just use that.
That is definitely accurate and a great place to end this interview. James, thank you for your time. We love you more than anything. Can't wait to see you out there.
Take care, Frank. It's all the best.
Peace, brother.
Peace.
The nail in the coffin!